Karen Era Comics, DC, Marvel, mainstream guys. I think they're in a tough situation. Definitely from a social standpoint, man, these guys are deranged anyway. But I do think there's something that's in the back pocket that they have relied upon to try to get an initial boost of sales. But it also frustrates them, especially the people that they are creative, that act like they're creative and work for them. And that is this idea that there are these characters that have been around for so long. And no amount of work, because they're talentless hacks right now, they'll never be able to create a character that'll be able to replicate what it is they'll do, that they can do and have been able to do with these characters that, like the Batmans and the Superman of the world, are staples of really America, and they transcend beyond simply comic books. That makes a lot of people irate. This is why you had things like All New, All Different, Future State, where they were trying to change those versions of a lot of those characters, because that pisses them off. It frustrates them. It's like, there's this thing that a lot of people like that are on all sides of the political spectrum, and they like these characters, and I can't do that. Therefore, I'm spiteful. All of these social justice advocates pretending to be like journalists that work for the Access Media also make note of this, because there are always these little examples, things that show up, right? And it shows exactly what it is that I'm saying. It highlights how you suck as a writer or creative or director, even in that sense. You suck. And you'll never be like the greats. Take a look at this. You know, DC Comics does all this round robin. That was it was like some weird literal gay shit that they I remember seeing some members of the Access Media that were frustrated, like last year, if I'm not mistaken, on DC Round Robin. It was like Justice League Queer or something like that. It was like Justice League Queer or some shit like that. It was like, who the fuck wants to read that? And it ended up not winning, of course. And some people were frustrated. But they're doing it again, of course, Round Robin tournament. And it says that DC's Round Robin, this is the Access Media's take on this. DC's Round Robin tournament still fails to support its smaller characters. Let's see what CBR is talking about. The 2020 DC Round Robin tournament is entering final stages and now seems like an ideal time to examine how the tournament actually fails the less popular characters of the DC universe. The idea behind the tournament is a fun one and gives fans the opportunity to vote on a variety of unique stories following both iconic and lesser known characters. Inevitably, though, fans gravitate towards story ideas focusing on the most prominent DC heroes. Okay. Now, you'd only have a problem with that. You'd only have a problem with that if you don't give a shit what your customer wants. So if actual customers, and you know, they do it in kind of this poll format, so it is, I don't know how exactly they're extrapolating that data, but I can understand where it'd be confusing. But of course they're going to gravitate to the ones that are proven and tried. Wow, like, how is that a problem? That's my thing. If you actually give a shit about what the customers want, why is that a problem? That, well, they're gravitating. We've given them a mechanism, right? A fucking entire round robin tournament, and they're gravitating towards these characters. If anything, you take that information and be like, okay, this is what they want. Let's give them what they want. Instead, Access Media types look at it, well, the fans want this, and I guess that's a bad thing. Said this has unfortunate side effect of neglecting characters who are not as well known. This is something that occurred in last year's tournament, in which the Robins eventually won the right to have a story following all of them. The same issue is happening this year. As of this moment, the names vying the championship are all prominent heroes. What's the problem? This is a wasted opportunity for DC's part. They could diversify their stories if they only offered stories about characters who don't get that much time in the spotlight. This writer of this article is essentially saying, go lose money, it's worth it, by bringing in some lesser known fucking character that people don't give a shit about. That's such a stupid fucking thing, man. Like, that doesn't, Like, I'm thinking about this not just from a creative perspective, but also from the perspective of a businessman. Why on earth? Why wouldn't I listen? I'm like, it's different to listen to the minority of weirdos that don't give a shit, right? That act like they give a shit. And Twitter definitely, and those types of social media sites can be very difficult to decipher. I get it. However, what's the problem here? DC Comics has tried and true characters. And yes, supporters are going to gravitate. And it also doesn't mean that you can't introduce new characters. It's just that, upon giving an option and you give them like a synopsis, and this is what the DC Round Robin does. It says, okay, here's the title. Here's kind of the basis of what's going to happen in that title. Do you want to hear this story? And if it wins, they'll publish it. If not, then whatever. At the moment, I'm continuing reading. This is the Wildcats kind of round robin deal that is showing. Is at the moment the stories competing with each other to reach the final round. Follow Green Lantern, Superboy, the Suicide Squad, John Constantine. All of them are household names in the DC universe. And easily overtook stories about Animal Man or Wildcat, characters who do not get much time to shine on their own. What makes this even worse is the fact that the stories that were proposed for them all sound incredibly interesting to you, potentially. That's the thing about you don't get to dictate that, right? As just an individual. Yes, I get it. That's the cool thing about all of this. You're going to have people that want to see different things. But ultimately, you are a business, and ultimately, you're going to have people that most people are gravitating towards this. To act like there's some sort of crime or wrongdoing because the company says, well, because, DC's going to fuck this up anyway, don't get me wrong. But it's not like doing so is wrongful, where they say, we have something tried and true, it works, it's been proven it works, let's develop stories based upon those characters that work. Doesn't mean you can't introduce new characters. Actually, it's a cooler way to introduce new characters, as you can, you got a story that people are interested in, and you can bring in a character if you know what it is you're doing, and the audience will tell you if they're interested in that character, and maybe you can use it as a branching point, right? But what this guy's bitching about is essentially, well, the prominent characters are the ones that the folks people are gravitating towards. Like, no shit. This comes at the cost of DC having less incentive to develop more unique story ideas. This is such a... The last time Animal Man got a comic book series, it delved deep into the lore of the Red and the animalistic counterpart to the Green, the same force that empowers people like Poison Ivy and Swamp Thing. Focusing on him for a potential miniseries could further develop unexplored lore. DC Round Robin Tournament could be an opportunity to explore all of these unique portions of DC's storied history. That's not the point. Instead of creating an unfair competition between lesser-known established heroes, the tournament could be used to give only underutilized heroes a chance to star in their own series. So this guy is complaining that the tournament doesn't, I guess, have fans choosing between characters that they don't care about. It's such a bizarre thing to bitch and moan about, but this is the reason. It's because this person's not thinking about it from the businessman standpoint. Again, don't get it wrong, DC will fuck it up. DC will fuck. Just because they have a story doesn't mean they ain't gonna try to do some old goofy shit with it. Just because the fans wanted something, that don't mean they won't do something goofy. So make no mistake of that. But that kind of mindset, I think, is the proper term to use here. That kind of mindset, I think, really plagues this industry right now. And that's a bunch of people who don't like the fact that popular characters are popular. And like actually popular. Like I actually have support. It's not like Miles Morales popular, like where it's like Twitter, like you have stan accounts and shit, but like they don't go buy books. Like not that kind of popular. I'm talking like actual popular, as in, people that still for whatever reason are invested in Marvel and DC every Wednesday would go purchase that comic book if it's interesting and based upon the character that they like care about keeping up with. But there's certainly other creative ways to introduce new characters that you want to introduce. You could do it anyway, of course, but all this does is reassure you as a business that this is what the fans want. And if you and this is what kills me about DC, like being and Marvel being in the red, because everything's a layup here. So that's how talentless that they are. They go out of their way to suck. Really, is what it boils down to. They suck, and you have all these tried true characters, and you somehow don't know what the fuck to do with them. That's because you don't have any talent over there anymore. But I get it. The popular characters are popular for a reason. And to act like there's some sort of crime there is absolute nonsense. You just listened to a clip from my podcast, For Canon's Sake, which is live throughout the week at 12 p.m. Central on youtube.com/YoungRipper59 and odyssey.com/@YoungRipper59. Be sure to check out my website, ericdjuly.com, so you can stay up to date with everything it is that I'm doing. You can also become a member and get access to a bunch of cool perks and exclusive content, which includes a social media hub where you can interact with myself and other members. It even has an app that you can get, which is now live in the Google and Apple stores.